Welcome to Frameworks. Each week, we get into what it actually takes to build a sustainable coaching practice. So if you're a fitness coach who wants to build a career that lasts, you are in the right place. If you're getting value from the show, do me a favor, subscribe wherever you're listening. And if you know another coach who would benefit from the show, please send it their way. And with that, let's get into it. All right, guys, today we are talking about business, we're talking about money, and we're talking about why a lot of really great coaches quit or burn out before they ever hit their business stride. Okay. So this is usually not a coaching problem. Okay. So, we educate a lot of coaches here at OPEX, and we are dealing with coaches that are super excited to be better coaches, which is awesome. It's so great to see, and it's so fulfilling to help them become better coaches. But at the end of the day, none of these coaches will be successful over the long term if they don't turn on that business switch at some point. Okay. So this is not a coaching problem. A lot of the failures that we see in the coaching business, it is quite frankly a business problem. Okay. So you can be great at coaching, but that does not mean that you are going to be great at running a great coaching business. Okay. So coaching businesses fail because they're not making enough money at the end of the day. Okay. Most coaches run their practices like a hobby, not like an actual business. And that's where we can get into a lot of trouble. And we talk to our coaches about this a lot, right? Where we talk about, we present like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And, every coach always wants to go to the top, or most coaches want to go to the top, and they just want to talk about fulfillment, right? I want to be really fulfilled in what I do. I want to help people, and that is awesome. But there's a lot of things below that we have to make sure are taken care of, and those are the things that we're talking about today. Okay, we need to make sure that we're able to put food on our tables. We need to make sure that we can create safety, financial safety for ourselves as well as our family before we can start worrying about, being fulfilled in what we're doing. Okay. And that's not to say that we need to ignore fulfillment or don't consider it. But if our aim is only fulfillment, our coaching practice is going to fall short. So today I'm going to walk through some real math and show you why a lot of the most common coaching models are broken from the start. And what I want us to think about as coaches in this business is I really want us to think about, what model do we sit in? Okay. Do we sit in a model that is setting us up for failure from the start? Or are we thinking outside of the box and thinking about a model that will allow us to scale at the rate that we want to scale? And I want to be really careful in saying well, every coach should aim at making $125,000 per year. I absolutely hate that when, I hear, these very specific financial aims. We all have our own financial aims. Understand what that is for you, and then reverse engineer that and fall into the model, practice, create the systems and efficiencies to get you there as soon as possible. Okay, guys. So first, I want to talk about what this burnout cycle usually looks like. Okay, so I just called this the 3-year burnout cycle. Okay, year 1. You're coming in, you're a coach, you're doing everything yourself. You're programming, you're coaching, you're doing your own billing, your marketing, your client management, you're doing absolutely everything. You're working 60 to 70 hours per week. You're making almost nothing, but that is okay because you are very fulfilled. You're doing what you've always wanted to do. So the 60 to 70 hours per week is just the quote unquote grind right now, even though you're not seeing the fruits of your labor. You're taking every client that walks through the door. You're undercutting on price because you need to build confidence, not margins. And this is where you are in year 1. You're boots on the ground for the very first time. You're quote unquote earning your stripes. And this is what the first year in coaching looks like for most people. All right, now we're moving to year 2. You've gained some momentum, but you feel a little bit trapped. You're really thinking, does it really take this long to grow? Am I doing the right things? Right now, maybe you have 20 to 30 clients. You realize you need 40 plus clients at your current rates to make a middle class income. You are busier, but you're not any wealthier. You try to solve a business problem with more coaching volume. You stay stuck trying to scale, but with the wrong model. So when I say that you're trying to solve these business problems with more coaching volume, you're just grinding, right? Like you're behind the computer. You're like, I need to design better fitness programs. I need to have better consultations. I need to serve my clients better. And you're doing that and you're doing that and you're not thinking about acquisition. You're not thinking about increasing your clients' rates. You brought them in at $99 per month. And you did that out of necessity because you needed to grow a client roster, and now you feel stuck there. Okay, so this is what year 2 might feel like for you. All right, now you're getting to year 3. Okay, so now burnout is really starting to set in. You're drowning in demand or losing clients because you're just exhausted. So the great programs that you were writing in year 1 and year 2, your clients that have been with you are now starting to see this decline. Okay. You're not investing in yourself because you're too tired to even think. You're just like, I just need to wake up, design training programs, coach on the floor, have consultations, whatever this looks like. Okay. You can't delegate or systematize anything just because you don't have the brain power to do it. Either you are now thinking about either leaving the industry or you're just limping along until your brain, your body, everything just kind of gives up. This cycle repeats because nobody sat down and did the math before you started your coaching practice. And this cycle might repeat because you didn't think about the model that you're in. Maybe you're a personal trainer and you're just like, I'm working 40 hours a week. I have 15 sessions per week. I'm not charging enough. My margins aren't there. I don't have enough time to acquire more personal training clients. Or maybe you're a group coach and you're just like, I just don't have enough hours in the day to put enough classes in these days to make the money that I want to make, right? So this cycle might repeat because of one of those 3 reasons. Your model, whether it's personal training or group, because you've created no system, or you didn't sit down and do the math to understand if your model is going to get you where you want to go. Okay. So this is just an example, guys. I'm not saying every coach comes in and has this 3-year burnout cycle, but I just wanted to think about, where a coach usually starts, super excited, ready to go, boots on the ground, to this point of like, oh my gosh, I'm just burning out and I'm working a lot of hours. I'm not making enough money. I had some early client success, but that client success never really led to my client roster growing. So usually that's what this looks like. Sometimes this is a 10-year burnout cycle. Sometimes it's a 12-month burnout cycle, but I just wanted to lay that out for you guys. All right, guys, now bear with me. We're going to go through a little bit of thought experiment and we're going to talk about a lot of math right now. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to lay out a couple models. Model number 1, I want to talk about you group fitness coaches. Okay. And I'm going to land at, I think it's a charitable $30 per hour or $30 per class. I think that's probably pretty typical across the board in the industry. So group fitness coach at $30 per hour or $30 per class. Okay. This sounds normal, right? Lots of coaches start here. I know a lot of coaches that have started here. Heck, I've even, coached group fitness classes at, $20, $15, $25 an hour. Okay. But let's do the math at $30 per hour. To make $50,000 per year at $30 per hour, you're going to need 1,667 paid hours per year. Okay. And we're talking about $50,000 per year. $50,000 per year is not what it was 10 years ago. Okay. So $50,000 per year is a very, very low wage, depending on where you live. Okay. So with that math, that is 32 hours per week of teaching classes every single week, no time off. Okay. But you're not just teaching. You've got setup, you've got breakdown, you're commuting to the gym. Maybe you're doing some programming. Maybe you're helping with some admin. Maybe you're making a couple $1,000s extra by doing those extra things at the gym that you're working at. Okay. But that's where you're starting, $50,000 per year, and you're working 1,667 paid hours each year. So let's talk about a real work week for you guys that might be in this scenario. So you're working 40 to 50 hours per week. Your paid hours are probably 32, right? Your unpaid hours are everything else. And $50,000 is before taxes and your expenses, whatever those might be. So after those, you're probably closer to $35,000 to $38,000 per year. That is a full-time plus schedule for below average income. So the math just does not work here. So if you are a group coach, do the math for yourself. We're going to walk through a financial model here in a few minutes, but just do that math in your head right now. Okay. What is it going to take for you to make the money that you need to make a living out of coaching? A lot of the time when we do the math, guys, we just can't actually get there in group coaching. But hey, maybe you guys have found a facility that's going to pay you, 2 or 3x this, and then it starts looking a little bit more interesting, but you still got to log those hours. All right, now I'm going to talk to you personal trainers out there. Okay, so the scenario that I'm going to use here is I'm going to use the personal trainer. You are billing $100 per hour, and usually PTs that are working within a facility don't keep the full rate. The gym or the facility that you're at takes a cut. So you're at $100 per hour and you're taking 60% of that $100. Okay. So you're taking home $60 per hour in this scenario. So to make $50,000 per year at $60 per hour, you need 833 paid sessions per year. That's about 16 sessions per week, every single week. Again, no break. Okay. 16 sessions a week, every week. Sounds doable until you factor in everything else. Program writing, maybe you're doing some consultation with these clients, client messaging, marketing, admin. You actually need to work to acquire these clients, because I doubt that you guys are just sitting on the floor and, the gym that you're working at is just feeding you all of these clients to maintain the 16 sessions per week. And you probably want to grow because you probably want to make more than $50,000 per year. So you want those 16 sessions to turn into 20 to 24 sessions to 30 to 32 sessions every single week. So a real work week here would be about 25 to 30 hours every single week. Paid hours are going to be 16. The rest is essentially free labor. You're grinding, you're trying to add more clients, you're trying to log more billable hours. Okay. So when we start to look at the math here, even if you're just grinding, okay, if you're grinding and you get up to 25 sessions per week, which is, for some coaches or personal trainers, this might feel sustainable. For others, it might be unsustainable. You have to answer that for yourself. But you're logging 25 sessions per week. That's $1,500 per week, roughly $78,000 per year before taxes. Okay. And a lot of the times for a lot of personal trainers, this is essentially your ceiling, whether it's your ceiling because that's all you can sustain, or it might be your ceiling because that's all that you can actually acquire. Okay, that's a decent amount of sessions per week. I know a lot of personal trainers that do a lot more than 25 sessions every week. And I know a lot of personal trainers that cannot log 25 paid sessions per week. They're grinding to get there. Okay, so when you're in this scenario and you're like, hey, this might be unsustainable, or this is unsustainable for me, more clients is not going to save you, because you're just digging yourself a deeper hole. Right? You're literally trading dollars for hours. And that's where we find ourselves when we get into this personal training realm. Okay. More hours, that's also not going to save you, because you need to find those clients to fill those hours. And if you do find those clients to fill those hours, you find yourself back to, I'm just spending too much time on the floor and I don't have enough time for anything else. So if you're a personal trainer and you find yourself in this situation, the model is the problem. And this isn't to say that the personal training model is broken or not good, because I know that this model works really well for a lot of personal trainers out there. But just like anything, it doesn't work well for most. Okay, let me put my bias hat on. And I'm biased for a reason, guys. I'm biased because I think this is the best model. Okay, let's talk about the individual design model. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the individual design model. And I think this is fair. We've been kind of using this number as an anchor for many, many years. And this number is actually a lot higher now, but I want to be conservative here. Okay. So you're an individual design model and you're making $300 per month per client. Okay. So in this situation, you're probably programming for each client roughly 20 to 30 minutes per week. It's kind of a long time getting to 30 minutes per week. But again, I want to be really conservative here. Okay. So you're programming for each one of those clients roughly 20 to 30 minutes per week. You're doing follow-ups, check-ins, and adjustments. I hope you guys are using CoachRx. CoachRx is going to save you a lot of time if you are. So maybe another 10 to 15 minutes per client per week, just with those follow-ups and all that stuff. Okay. So total time per client is about 30 to 45 minutes per week. So let's call it 40 minutes. Okay, so a lot of this work is async, though. You're not on the floor with these clients all the time. So if you're an in-person individual design model, maybe you're on the floor at times and you have 12, 15 people in the facility at a time and you're coaching them in movement and stuff like that. Or maybe you're a remote coach. If you're a remote coach, it's all async. Okay, so you're not standing on the gym floor and you do this work on your own schedule. So you have some flexibility and you get to determine when you're programming, when you're consulting, all of those things. So let's take a moment and let's run the numbers in this scenario. So again, being conservative, let's just say that you have 20 clients at $300 per month. Okay. Or yeah, 3 clients individually paying $300 per month. So that leaves you with $6,000 per month, and that is $72,000 per year. So time invested is roughly 13 hours per week. Okay. And again, that's not a very conservative number. If we're going to be even more conservative, we'd probably say like 18 hours per week for 20 clients at that $300 price point. Now we grow our client base. Okay. So at 20 clients, we're at $72,000. At 30 clients at $300 per month. Now we're getting up to $9,000 per month in total revenue. That's going to bring us up to $108,000 per year. Time invested, roughly 20-ish hours per week. Now we move up to 40 clients at $300 per month. Okay, so that's $12,000 per month, and that's $144,000 per year. Time invested, roughly 27 to, let's call it 32 hours per week, all in. Okay. And then we can, if you're extremely inefficient and you don't have systems, guys, like these numbers are going to be a lot higher in terms of time invested. And if you're really efficient and you have great systems, these numbers are going to actually be a little bit lower. Okay. So let's take a second. Let's compare these 3 models. So the group fitness coach working 45 plus hours per week is making about $50,000 before taxes. The personal trainer working 25 to 30 hours per week is at about $78,000 before taxes. The individual design coach is working about 20 hours per week with 30 clients, and that coach is at about $108,000 per year. So same industry, completely different math, completely different life experience, and that time to burnout is probably going to be a lot more extended if you're in this individual design model. Not to mention, you're probably going to get better results with your people in a model like individual design. If you're juggling 5 different apps to run your coaching business, check out CoachRx. One platform, programming, assessments, client management. CoachRx.app, free 14-day trial to see why it's the right fit for your coaching practice. Links in the show notes. Okay, now that we understand the math and how the model in which we're working within can lead to better or worse math, let's talk about the gap between great coaches and great businesses. So great coaches think about the individual. Business builders think about the systems and patterns. Both are actually good. I want to stress that, okay? I'm not saying if you're a coach, you shouldn't think about and stress the individual. You absolutely should, but you also need to think about systematizing your practice. Okay. So I always use this term called hyper personalization. And what we want to do as individual design coaches is we want to avoid hyper personalization because it is very, very hard to systematize hyper personalization. Okay. A great coach highly individualizes programs. That doesn't mean that it's hyper individualized, but it's just highly individualized. Everything that you give your client, they understand why they're getting it based on the conversation, based on the assessment, so on and so forth. Okay. So there's deep assessments, there's weekly tweaks. The work that you're giving them just matches the intention. So everything just flows nicely. Everything flows beautifully. Okay. But it's not scalable if you don't have the right structure and the right system. Okay. And that's what we talk about a lot in the OPEX method is we talk about, okay, how do we take these very solid, tried and true coaching principles as they have to do with coaching the individual, and how do we systematize these things? We just talk about that all the time. Build your system, build your system. You want to do great things, but you want to do those great things within a system that is highly repeatable. Okay. A business builder is going to ask what assessment process looks like. Where does it cluster? Where does it scale effectively? How can you systematize that? And where does it continue to deliver for great client experience? Okay. A great business builder is talking or thinking about, how do I create systems where I don't have to recreate the wheel every time? And we talk about that so much. I do not want to recreate the wheel when it has to do with program design. I do not want to recreate the wheel when it comes to the assessment and my assessment process. Guys, we need to get, just like exercise, we want to get really good reps in that mimic each other over and over and over again. And that's how we build great systems. Let's talk about an example that we see come up a lot. And this is what we'll call the accessibility trap. Okay. So a great coach is always available, fast response time, clients feel taken care of. But as a business builder, we have to balance that. Okay. We have to be a great coach, but we also have to set great expectations. Okay. We have to think about our time. We have to structure our time. And I think that's an issue that a lot of remote coaches find themselves in. We just talked about it a few minutes ago. It's like one of the benefits of being a remote coach is you have a flexible schedule. Sometimes a flexible schedule can be a disbenefit for people because they're not structured enough. So because that schedule is flexible, they're just like, I'm going to do everything all at once at any time, instead of saying, I design on Wednesday and Friday, I consult on Monday and Thursday, I do all of my check-ins on Tuesday, whatever the case is, right? Like we have to structure our week, even though we feel like we have a lot of freedom, because sometimes too much freedom when it comes to time can create instability. Okay. Oh, I'll have time for it later. I'm just, I'm going to go on vacation, or I'm going to do that, or I'm going to do this. And, work catches up with us. Okay. So we have to set really good expectations on the client side, and we have to set really great expectations with ourselves on our workflow. Okay. The business builder approach here, we have to think about this structurally. Okay. We need to structure everything. We need to structure communication. When do you do office hours? Do you do consultations? How do you design training programs? Clear response times. I only respond to you Monday through Friday between these hours. You can expect a response within 24 business hours of you asking me a question. I'm not saying that those are like aims or that's a best practice, but it's just an example of clear communication. Okay. Clients still feel great because the expectations are clear. And as long as you meet and exceed, we should always aim to exceed those expectations, you're in a really good spot. All right, guys. So now what we're going to do is we're going to walk through just a simple forecasting tool that we give our coaches in the OPEX method. And I want to walk through this with you guys just so that we can see how our inputs equal our outputs, no matter what model we're in. So the model that we're going to walk through today is going to be the individual design model, but I'm going to give you guys access to this business forecast tool, and you can make it and customize it to whatever your model is. But I just want to walk through this with a couple different scenarios, and I just want to look at some of the outputs with you. So instructions in going through this, guys, are just really easy. All you're doing is you're filling out these yellow highlighted cells in the Your Inputs tab. And when you do that, everything just updates automatically. So the 12-month forecast, 24-month forecast, knowing your numbers, which we'll walk through here in a second, and then a career stage guide. And we connect this to the OPEX method and the stuff that we talk about in the OPEX method. So starting here, I want to walk through a couple of scenarios. Okay, guys. So client inputs, we kind of talked through some of those model examples when we walk through the specific models. And I just want to show what those look like in terms of inputs and outputs. So we talked about current number of clients. So we have 40 clients here. Average price point per client, we're going to keep that at 300. We're going to manipulate some of these just to see some of these outcomes and how some of these levers, how we can pull some of these levers for a great impact. A client retention rate, we're going to keep that at 96%. New clients added per month, we'll just go with 3 there. Max client capacity, we'll put that at 70. So we're 30 away from our max capacity here. So room to grow. Monthly expense inputs. So, if you have a rent or facility costs, you'd plug that in here. Software and tools, we have 500 there. Insurance, marketing and ads, continuing education. I hope that we're all always continuing to educate ourselves as coaches, and other monthly expenses. So total monthly expenses here, you'll see are at $1,200. So not too bad, right? Not too high, not too low there. Growth assumptions, these are optional, but I'd throw these in because I'd think through some of these things and how they affect your long-term forecast. So annual price increase, okay? How much do you plan to raise prices each year? Okay, so we have here about 5% is typical. Usually you're at inflation or a little bit over inflation. So I'm going to be conservative here. We'll have that 3%. Annual expense growth, we're going to put annual expense growth at 3%. So we'll keep that right at inflation. And then that'll increase these total monthly expenses. And, I know this seems obvious, but just because you're paying something for something today does not mean that you're going to continue to pay that thing in the future. Just like we're talking about increasing your prices over time, the companies that you are working within or the companies that you're using and the tools that you're using, they're probably thinking about the same thing. So we got to keep that in mind. And then referral rate. So percentage of clients who refer a new client each month. So you can pull this lever as well. This is an awesome acquisition lever, and this is going to be on top of your new clients added per month, maybe through marketing or through organic, whatever the case is. Okay, so current snapshot here, guys. So if we're at these numbers, we're making $12,000 per month in revenue. Our expenses are at $1,200. Monthly profit, we're at $10,800. Current profit margin, that's a great profit margin, 90%. Utilization rate, so that's 57%. So utilization just means I'm at 40 and my max is 70. And annual revenue, if everything is unchanged, is $144,000. Okay, so I'm just going to stay on this tab for a second, and I want you guys, when you guys download this, to really play with this to see how manipulating some of these things will affect your bottom line. Okay, so let's look at price point. Okay, so if I go from $300 to $325, I go from $144,000 of revenue per year to 156. Okay, so 144 to 156. If I go up to 350, I go from 144 to 168,000. So $50 makes a very big difference. So we have to start now looking at average price point per client, and that's why we always talk about that with our coaches. Okay, so let's bring that right back down to 300. So we're still at our 144,000 per year. Okay, if we're not at 40 and we're at 55 clients, at that $300 price point, we go from $144,000 per year to $198,000 per year. And if we hit our client max capacity and everything stays the same, we don't do any price increases or anything like that, we go from annual revenue of $144,000 to $252,000 per year, 70 clients at $300 per client average price point. Okay, so I just want to walk through those things. There's a bunch of other things that we can manipulate here, but I'm going to keep it even at the 40 clients at $300 price point. Retention rate's going to stay the same. And then I want to walk through these forecasts. So if I go to this 12-month forecast, you can see month 1 to month 12, we started month 1 at 40 clients. We're going to end month 12 at 51 clients. We started month 1 at, let's look at our monthly profit. So we started month 1 at $10,800. And by the end of the year, we are going to be making $14,100 if our assumptions play out. So a couple things here. These things could play out exactly like you forecasted them. Usually that doesn't happen though, guys. So we have to go in and update the model as reality starts to hit. So let's say that it does, right? We're making almost $4,000 more per month within that year if our growth assumptions stick. Okay, so we really got to think through this stuff when we set these inputs. And it could be really motivating for us as well, because we're like, it gives us the ability to focus on a single lever over time if we understand what that lever is going to do. Okay, so same assumptions. Let's say that we extend that over 24 months and we keep up with those same numbers. So monthly profit, we're at $10,800 month 1. We go all the way to month 24 and we're at $18,231 in total profit. So we've almost 2x'd our profit margin as long as we're able to keep up with these assumptions that we set. Okay. Now let's do something really quick here. Okay. So let's go to the 24-month forecast and everything's going to stay the same. I want you guys to look at this 18,231 number. I'm going to go in and I'm going to change my retention rate from 96% to 90%. Okay. So we're at that $18,000 number. Now look at what that does to us, guys. So if we can hold that 90% retention rate, we're down almost half. Okay. So retention rate matters a lot. So I want you guys to go in, mess around with these numbers and see how these numbers affect you. Okay. So we have our 12-month forecast, our 24-month forecast, and then I just called this tab Know Your Numbers. Okay. So current versus forecast. So you don't have to scroll through the 12-month forecast. It just shows you a snapshot of where you are now versus where you're going to be in 12 months. Have just a little bit of an explanation of what each one of these metrics mean here in column F. And you have this break-even analysis. So this is so simple, guys. It's just based off of the expenses that you're reporting. So you might be higher, you might be lower, you might be exactly where this is. So in this model, our break-even analysis is at 4 clients. So all we need is 4, okay? And then this is clients above break-even. We obviously always want this to move north. And then this is just a useful tab, I think, right? So we talk about what stage of coaching are you in? Part-time, full-time, thriving, coach of coaches. So this person is at a thriving coach spot because this coach is at $10,800 in monthly profit. All right. So hopefully, guys, that is helpful for you guys. Again, you guys are going to have this as a downloadable asset in the show notes. So just make sure that you go in, you download this thing and use this to see where you are. All right. So we could talk about money. We could talk about business. We could talk about models and what success looks like all day. But guys, you have to apply this thing. So I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't give you maybe some thoughts on, what you can do moving forward here. So to apply what we've talked about today, first, download the spreadsheet and just do the math, play with it. Fill in your real numbers. Don't guess. Pull your bank statements if you have to. Look at your profit margin and your break-even analysis. Where does that look like? Okay. If the numbers aren't where you want them, that's not a failure. That is just clarity. Okay. So go in, plug in exactly where you are. And a lot of the time, this is a really useful exercise because it forces us to actually understand and know our numbers. Okay, so plug in where we are now. Second, what I want you to do is just audit your time for a week. So I gave you guys some, really random numbers in terms of like, you might be spending this much time, that much time. Those are just like averages. Okay. Understand where you're spending your time in a week. How much time do you take program designing? How much time do you take giving your clients feedback? How much, if you're a personal trainer, how much time do you not only take on the floor training your clients, but how much time do you take, designing their programs or, grinding and trying to bring in more clients? Okay. Really understand how much time you're spending week over week. Third, run the what if in the spreadsheet. Okay. So what if you raise your price by $50 per client? What if you added 2 clients per month instead of 1? What if you dropped your lowest paying clients and replaced them at a higher rate, or thought about what we just talked about, raising their rates? But still understand, anytime that you do that, your retention in that month might be a little bit lower. So you have to do the math to make sure that it's the right move for you. Pick one change, guys. Pick a change, make a plan to execute, and do this for a month, multiple months, and track the changes that you're seeing in your model. Okay, so it's one thing to model out or forecast, but it's a completely different thing to see, okay, is what I'm doing actually working? What does this sound like, guys? This sounds like designing a training program, right? You give a client a training program. Before you give it to them, you give them an assessment. You have some objective data. They execute that program over 4, 6, 8 weeks, and then you reassess them. Let's do the same thing, but inside of our businesses. Hopefully that was a beneficial conversation around just money and models and just understanding where we sit and understanding, what success looks like for us. So spend some time with this, guys. Rewatch this if you have to. We went through a lot today. If you haven't already, please check out what we're doing in the OPEX method. We're really refining this education every single quarter, every single cohort. We're getting ready to kick off our next cohort in the next couple weeks. You can find the application link in the description. Apply, chat with a coaching advisor. If you haven't already gone through the OPEX method, the old CCP, we're now calling it the OPEX method. If you haven't gone through that, jump on a call with one of our coaching advisors, talk about if the program is the right fit for you. I would love to have you in the program. We would love to have you in the program. But until then, take care, guys.